So I would request you just to read just the first word, and probably we'll go into it, and I'll share with you what Lord has put onto my heart, right? Just as we sung, right? I will sing of your love for all eternity, right? And I hope everyone meant it when we sung it, right? And that's just one thing I want you to do right now. Keep your hand on your heart. And that's the first line. David says, I love you, Lord. Can everyone say, I love you, Lord? I love you, Lord. That's all I wanted to say. And yeah, you can be seated. It's if I read it, the whole time will be taken in just reading the psalm. So something about the psalm which I was trying to find, like what it is and why it is written. And clearly, if you see the title, it says it's the fourth longest psalm in the collection of psalms, and it's a psalm wherein David is giving praise, glory, and an honor to the Lord. And when I look at it, it's a long psalm, right? And but when I actually kept myself in place of David Apacha, and I was thinking about it as to what this great man of God must be going through. And I felt 50 verses are really less. When you speak about our Lord, the whole book will not be enough, right? And he just starts with a basic thing saying, Lord, I love you. How important, it's not that love which we say every day, I love you, I love you. This is like he has gone through all the troubles, and yet he says, Lord, I love you. That's so beautiful. Now, there is an introduction to this psalm. It's quite a long one when you compare. And of course, the psalm is such a long one. So and I'll read it. For the director of the music of David, the servant of the Lord, he sang to the Lord the words of this song. When the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul, he said. Right? Even this title, it's included in the text. So I was thinking whether I speak on it. But when I actually, there's the interlinear, it says Hebrew text, it is there. So I said, okay, I can speak on it. And even this speaks so much about the character of this great man, David, He addresses, so he's probably, I don't know, he's writing to the music director so that he can keep record of things. And this is how he writes, he's probably the king right now. And what he says is, David, the servant of God. Like, he's in such a position, all his enemies are gone. Probably he's in that position. He doesn't have to say, he said, servant of God. What humility. And then if you just read it, it says, he delivered me from all my enemies. And then he says, Saul. Now, this is how it spoke to me. He says, enemy is one side. This guy who was the most dangerous person, who was always behind, he wanted to take his life, he still didn't consider him as enemy. He's the anointed, he knows, right? And that's what again, it's in as much I'm telling you, it speaks to me as well. At times, what happens is, we knowingly, unknowingly, right? We speak about the anointed of the God. Like even in church, at times, there are pastors, right? There are various church pastors. And the word is telling us you have no right to even utter a word negatively against the anointed of the Christ. So that's what I learned from that very first thing. Like and we haven't even started. It's just the introduction. So that's a warning. Again, at times we speak right at home to each other, and we tend to speak knowingly, unknowingly. We tend to speak bad things about people who are in that position. God has anointed them. So that's something God says, be careful, right? That's not your job. Now, and I'm going to read this. So he is he's speaking about the Lord, right? And such beautiful words. I If I were to say that first line, and I would have been over by that. But he says, and I will read it so that we feel that what he's trying to say. Okay, the Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. So, till here, right, he's just glorifying him, and every title he's giving to the Lord, right? You're my rock. Like when I look at that word, he might be thinking about that rock he threw at Goliath and he fell down. From that small, again, rocks when you see in the mountain, there are big rocks wherein you can take refuge as well. And he ends with, you are everything. Right from a small rock to a stronghold, you are my everything, Lord. That's how I see he's speaking to himself, and he's glorifying the Lord because he knows, right, who is the actual kingmaker. He has done everything. And then it shifts from, in if you see verse 6, in my distress I called the Lord, I cried to my God for help, and from his temple he heard my voice. So now there is one situation, it changes. Like from praising, he says, in my distress I called on to the Lord. Very interesting thing, I don't know whether anyone has noticed, it says temple there, um, and the temple is still not there. Solomon is going to build the temple. I'm like, Lord, temple? I realize this, he knows a lot of things, right? He knows he's inclined spiritually. It's probably that's why he had an idea of the temple, and his desire was always to build that temple. Of course, he didn't fulfill it, but he did all the things possible in his capacity so that the temple was made as it should be, right? So that's one thing I realized. And so in my distress I called the Lord, I cried to my God for help, and from his temple he heard my voice. And then see what happens. He's telling the earth trembled, right? Smoke from his nostrils, consuming fire, and great thing he's speaking as to what Lord did, right? This is a promise. Though you might not feel, but when you cry in your distress, this is what is happening in the spiritual world. You might not feel it, but trust me, this is what's happening when you cry out, when you have a situation. And when you cry out to the Lord, he is not going to keep quiet. If there's an enemy that's troubling you and you have cried out to him, having faith in him, he's going to work away. Right? Dramatically. It's so dramatic. It's like, some words are like, a great bolts of lightning. He parted the heavens. Imagine, in Hindi we say, Zameen Asman ek kar diya to defend my child. He will do everything to defend you if you go to him in trouble, right? That's one thing. And then we move. There's one verse 19. If you look at it, he brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Now, this verse, whenever I was upset and I read this psalm, it used to make me a bit angry. Like, you always think about David, okay, you trying to ignore things, but Lord, you delighted in him, that's why you gave them everything. When I think of Solomon, so Lord, he had everything in the plate. You delighted in him. You don't delight in me. That was my question every time, Lord, do you delight in me? But really, it spoke to me. Again, he says, just as I delighted in David, in Jesus Christ, I delight in you. And probably even more, right? He delights in you. And he's going to do things for you. Again, you might not understand. You might be in such a situation. I'm speaking to myself as well, right? You might be in a situation you don't understand what he's working. But at the end of it, you will know he did work for you. And that's the time. Again, but what David teaches us is in his ups and in his downs, in every situation, when the enemy was behind him, he says, Lord, you are with me. When I got the victory is because of you. Everything, it's nothing. It's total contrast to Saul, the first king, right? It's he. That's why he loves. Like David did a lot of things. Trust me. Like if you read it in Samuel, uh, you know the Bathsheba case, right? There was a time he was in the enemy land, wherein he went and killed people, and he didn't leave even a single woman and a child left, right? But then again, this is not that God is telling him to go and do that. He's doing it so that no one knows, right? I personally, if I look at it, it's like he's trying to be, he's scared and he's doing it out of his own, he's trying to save himself, right? So he's just like you and me, and the Lord is delighted in him. Just imagine, right? No one has killed anyone here, right? Still, and we have Jesus. We say, Lord, and that's I feel that's he has tuned his brain, every time. Lord, I know the Lord delights in me, and that's where the source of all blessings are. I know he delights in me, right? That's one thing. And I believe he always repented, and he never went back to that sin. That's what I personally believe. He sinned, but once he knew, like, okay, this was wrong, he said, Lord, sorry, I'm not going to go back. So that's one thing. And then I read 25 and 27. It gives us a glimpse of beatitudes, if you read it. And then Psalm 37, right? This is so beautiful. I said, he, three eyes. I see this is where he says, I pursued my enemies and I overtook them. I did not turn back till they were destroyed. I crushed them so that they could not rise. So three times he says, I, and immediately, right, he says, they fell beneath my feet because you armed me with strength for battle. So no chance of glorifying himself. His everything, all glory goes to the Lord. And I believe it's his favorite psalm. One of it, if not favorite, it's one of the favorites. If you see, the same psalm has been repeated. So this psalm, I believe he has written when he just became a king. And if you actually read 2 Samuel verse 22, it's the same psalm he's writing when he is at the end of his age, right? So I think it's a beautiful psalm. And again, with this psalm, I feel Lord is giving us a choice, right? There are two men named. There is David and there is Saul, right? Saul, God gave him chance after chance. And even after defeating the enemies, even though he didn't carry out the task which was given to him completely, the worst thing he does is he builds a monument for himself. On the other hand, this guy has the temple of the Lord in his mind. So I leave you with this thought today. In whatever you're doing, you will come to a situation wherein there'll be a choice. You either will build a temple for yourself or you'll glorify the Lord. And as believers, as the children of God, I hope we make the right decision.